Hey everybody, Griffin Hales back again with Electric Bike Report, and today we're bringing you the review of the Evelo Atlas. Now this bike features a lot of premium componentry that adds up to a very luxurious feeling ride that's a lot of fun. That fun factor is provided by the mid-drive motor and efficient battery pairing. And then of course this e-bike inspires a lot of confidence. It's built to last with one of the industry's leading warranties, showcasing that the brand has a lot of faith that you're going to go very far on this e-bike. I'm excited to get into everything this bike has to offer and show you what it can do. Let's go ahead and dive into our review. Now the Atlas here is far from a cookie cutter offering, which is something you'd expect from a bike that's priced a little more on the premium end of the spectrum as opposed to the budget end. Now with that higher price tag, you're kind of getting a lot more bike here. It is a very versatile e-bike. It is billed as a hybrid and touring bike. You can kind of see that from some of the ways that it's put together, and we'll kind of walk through those a little bit more. But Evelo definitely built this thing to last. So much so that actually they partnered with a cyclist by the name of Robert Fletcher, who's attempting to break the long-distance e-bike touring record by traveling from the North Pole of Alaska all the way down to Panama. Now, clearly that's not a feat you would try to attempt if you didn't feel you were riding something that is going to get you there and get you there in relative comfort and ease under those circumstances. Now, everything about this bike would start, of course, with its performance. Now, Evelo spec'd it with a Bafang M600 mid-drive motor, paired of course with a torque sensor. Now that combination provides a wonderfully natural pedaling experience. You just kind of feel like a boosted up superhuman version of yourself. You go faster on flats and you climb hills more easily. Now the bike also features a bunch of fun tech. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite bits of tech in the whole world of e-bikes, and that is the Enviolo CVT gearing system. Now, it's a pretty intricate bit of technology. I could go on at length about it. I'll put more in the written description back at the EBR website in the link below. But just suffice it to say that this system is very intuitive and easy to use. It is shiftless gearing. You can shift under load. It is all internally housed back here. It's virtually maintenance-free, and it cuts out some external parts such as a derailleur in the back that would pair with a cassette. One less thing to have damaged, one less thing to worry about. It's really a fun bit of technology. And then of course they pair that with a Gates belt drive. Now belt drives have a lot of advantages over a typical chain drive. They last longer, no chain grease to worry about, less maintenance, chains don't drop out. At the end of the day, it's just a very good setup that feels luxurious and premium. Now, of course, it's a versatile e-bike as well. Evelo bills this as something that you could take on city streets, you could commute with it, or you can go off-road, go camping. And a huge reason you're able to do that is thanks to these Schwalbe Supermoto tires here. They're 27.5 by 2.8 inches. They are a good tread pattern for carrying speeds, but they're also burly enough to actually withstand some of those off-road riding. Now, Evelo is trying to accommodate a bunch of different riders here. Riders from 5'6" up to 6'3" can ride this bike. It does have a 28-inch step-over height, and even riders up to 350 pounds are rated to ride around on this bike. It is very well put together, it's very well thought through, and again, it's built to last. So much so that Evelo actually has one of the best warranties in all of the e-bike business. It is a 4-year, 20,000-mile warranty. That's not something you hand out lightly, that's something you hand out when you know the bike will last. Again, Evelo kind of set out for comfort, for performance, and for versatility and longevity, and I think they checked every box with how they brought this together. Now, that's a little bit about the overview of the bike and some of the features, but now let's really dive into the spec sheet and understand what you're getting with this. And anything I don't mention here, I'll include in our written description back at the EBR website. Now, in terms of some of the key componentry you're getting here on the Evelo Atlas, again, it is a Class 3 e-bike, meaning the motor is capable of taking you to speeds up to 28 miles per hour. Thanks to that M600 Bafang mid-drive motor. It has a 1200 watt peak and 120 Newton meters of torque, meaning it is capable of great speeds and great hill climbing, which we are going to be testing later on. Now, here in the down tube of the battery is a 720 watt-hour Samsung battery. Evelo claims it goes up to 60 miles, which will show you what our range test results revealed about that. But if that is not enough battery for you and you would like to double that, you can do so with the optional second battery that we have featured here. It comes housed in this rack here, just situated over the rear tire, and it is very nice. The system is set up to actually let one ride and have the other one kick in. It's a seamless transition you don't even have to worry about. Now, providing the stopping power for this bike is Zoom hydraulic disc brakes with a 180 millimeter rotor in the front with a 160 millimeter rotor in the rear. Thought being you want more stopping power up front and maybe a little bit more control in the back, and that's why there is that setup. Now, the fork up front is a Zoom 100 millimeter air suspension fork. Air, of course, is a more premium type style of fork, offers just a better experience as opposed to coil spring counterparts. And I can attest to how much this changes the ride quality. Some of that riding footage that you're looking at, we did a lot of riding off-road, and actually when I started, I still had the fork locked out, and I was wondering why it was so uncomfortable out there. And then once I opened that up and allowed for the travel to engage, it made a huge, huge difference. It really does a good job of absorbing a lot of that abrasiveness of some of those roads. Now, kind of walking you through the cockpit setup that Evelo has given you here. On either side, there are some more durable than comfortable rubber grips. It's a nice wide platform for resting your hands on there. I don't find them particularly comfortable, but with gloves, kind of mitigates that. On the right-hand side, again, is the Enviolo shifter. It's really kind of fun. It has the little diagram showing you how you should operate it. The little cyclist on a flat road for when you're on flats, or when you change it and you shift up, changes it into a hill. Again, it just kind of makes it an intuitive feature that you're able to utilize and enjoy. Now, the center display on this is awesome. This is a color LCD display here in the middle. It has all of your relevant ride data. It has a percentage-based readout, which I love. Time, the amount of wattage that the motor is producing. That's something that I wish was on more displays, actually. It's kind of nice to have that, to actually see how much motor you're riding or demanding out of the bike, because you know if you're using a lot of motor, you can expect the bike's battery to die quicker. Now, the only thing I don't like about this display is the battery readout on the top right-hand side. When you dip down to, I think it's 20%, it goes from a green battery with white lettering to red, and actually becomes a little bit hard to see. I was struggling to see it out there in bright daylight. So just one very small minor gripe, but other than that, I actually love the cockpit. It is well set up for success. It kind of has a more angled, almost cruiser style handlebar. Again, this is a hybrid e-bike. It does have certain traits and features, such as the frame looks a little bit more like mountain bike geometry, but with versatile tires that let you go on or off-road, a little bit more comfortable and relaxed, neutral body positioning, I would say. You're not too far forward, you're not too far upright. Really makes it so you can take it just about anywhere you want to go. Now, when it comes down to the overall spec you're getting here, I'm actually very happy with the way that Evelo has set you up. I do think that there is pretty good value, even though you are paying a little bit more than your average e-bike. But again, value isn't always determined by paying less, it's by, are you happy with what you're paying for? And I think Evelo is providing you with enough premium componentry here to keep riders happy. So we've talked a lot about the spec of this bike, but of course, how it feels and how it comes together matters infinitely more. So let's go ahead and move on now to our testing section. With the Evelo Atlas being a Class 3 e-bike capable of 28 mile/hour motor-assisted speeds, you want to make sure that there is a good counterbalance in place for stopping all of that speed, which is of course provided by the braking system. Now, here on the Evelo Atlas, it is Zoom hydraulic disc brakes, the HB875E brake specifically, which means it has a 180 millimeter rotor in the front with 160 in the back. The larger rotor up front is for better stopping power, it's smaller in the rear for just a little bit better control. Now, to perform this test, we bring the bike up to 20 miles per hour before doing a full and complete stop as quickly and under as much control as possible, and we do this test multiple times for braking average. So on this bike, we got an average stopping distance of 19 feet and 3 inches. I'm actually very happy with that result. We recently changed up how we perform our braking test, where before we were out of the saddle, throwing our weight all the way back. We've changed it up to be a little bit more reflective of how most people will be riding these bikes, which is remaining in the saddle and just slowing down under control. So that sort of performance is really good to see, especially for a bike that says it can accommodate riders up to 350 pounds. If you're carrying extra weight on this bike, the more weight you have going at higher speeds, you want to make sure you can come to a stop, and you can definitely do so safely here on the Evelo Atlas. The next test we did with the Atlas was our circuit test. Here at EBR, the circuit is a 1 mile loop with a small 30-foot climb, and we do this test a total of 6 different times. Now what we're trying to evaluate here is the speeds you can achieve on this bike. Now the reason it's 6 times is that it's once without any help from the motor and then once across each of the 5 different levels of pedal assistance. Now starting things off, we saw about a 13.3 mile per hour result with no motor help. As soon as we engaged it, jumped up to 17 miles per hour and then smaller incremental increases up to about 21 miles per hour on the high end. Now a couple of thoughts I had about the speed profile breakdown of this bike. Number one, those results look a little bit clustered, but I'm actually really happy with the performance. Mid-drive motors with torque sensors like this are trying to match the effort level you bring. Each lap that I performed, I did it at a similar pedal cadence and similar effort, and even though it didn't make me go crazy fast or crazy high jumps, we did of course see a little bit less effort required on my part. I noticed my heart rate was coming down, it was just easier every time. Not only that, but it was actually just a really good natural pedaling experience. This bike kicks on almost instantly as soon as you put some effort into the pedal, and it just provides such a nice and smooth feel. You can almost forget that it's an e-bike, you just feel like a little bit more of a souped up version of yourself, but it is definitely taking a lot of that strain off of you. Again, I'm a huge proponent of pedaling on e-bikes. I like having e-bikes with throttles, and you can actually spec this with a throttle as well, but it's just a really good pedaling experience that I think people will enjoy. Now, anybody looking to buy an e-bike wants to know how far they're able to go on it. So we put the Atlas through 2 different range tests. We did one on maximum pedal assist, and we did once on pedal assist 1, where it's giving you a more conservative and measured amount of motor power. Now again, the Atlas comes stock with a 48 volt 15 amp hour Samsung battery, or 720 watt hours, which pairs with the 600 watt mid-drive motor. It's a pretty efficient pairing overall because the battery only gives the motor as much as it's asking for. It largely depends on how hard you're pedaling and riding around out there. So what we saw were results between 32 and 60 miles across our tests. I'm very happy with this for a couple of reasons. Number one, 60 miles is what Evelo claimed on their website, and I love it when what the brand is claiming is what is actually what you're going to get. So kudos to Evelo on that front. Now, not only that, but this is a touring bike. It is something that you can take for very long distances. And if you want to be able to go a week plus without having to worry about a charge, you can double that battery life. As you can see, this particular bike not only has the battery in the down tube, but Evelo sent us the one with the second battery that comes here in the rear rack. Now, for the purposes of our testing, we did it with just the one battery, but we can safely say that you would double and see battery life improve substantially if you add that there. Overall, it's a very comfortable e-bike. It's easy to ride this and not worry too much about whether or not you're getting fatigued. It's just an enjoyable experience, and you'll enjoy the miles you're going to get on this bike. Now, of course, anyone looking to buy an e-bike probably wants to do it for a little bit of help on the hills, so we tested that. Here at EBR, with each bike we review, we take it out to a hellhole, which is about 1/3 of a mile long and a 12% average grade. It's a very steep and extreme hill, far from something most people find on a daily commute, but we chose this hill specifically as we wanted to test what a motor could do when pushed to its absolute limits. This M600 motor by Bafang is capable of a 600 watts of sustained power with a 1200 watt peak, and a whopping 120 Newton meters of torque. We had really high expectations going into our hill test. Now, typically we do this twice. We do it once on the max pedal assist setting and once on throttle only power if that's available. Now, the Atlas does not come stock with a throttle. It is something you can add at checkout though. But for our results on the max PAS, we saw a time of 1 minute and 21 seconds and 13.4 mile per hour average as we climbed the hill. Now, I've got a few thoughts on this. Number one, I think this is a great hill climbing e-bike. Now, if you've watched a lot of our reviews, those numbers in terms of just where they stand in the pack are about middle. However, context is key. With this torque sensor, it is trying to match your effort level, and our test rider, Justin, is always trying to make sure he gives the same amount of effort on each hill test that he does. So it was a little bit of a more mellow result, but he did remark how pleasant and smooth it was. I know from my time riding around on the bike, I've very much enjoyed how it helps out on hills. It still feels like I'm in control. I'm riding the bike isn't dragging me along, but overall it just leads to a wonderful sensation. I think the only gripe I have about it is the fact that we couldn't test it out on throttle. It was a little bit strange because with a lot of the class 1 or class 3 e-bikes we get, I kind of accept my fate that it doesn't have a throttle. Evelo does say that you can add that at checkout. I almost kind of wish it came standard so we could take it off if we didn't want it, as opposed to having to get it secondhand. But that's okay. Overall though, in terms of what it can do on hills, it gets 2 thumbs up from EBR. Bottom line takeaway from this Evelo Atlas review is this: it is a premium e-bike that feels like a premium e-bike. In terms of the overall performance and of course some of the features on this, it is an absolute joy to ride around on. The motor on this feels wonderful. It feels like a natural extension of yourself. You go faster on flats and you climb hills with ease. I'm very happy in terms of the battery life that it provides. Across all of our testing, I've noticed how it took a very long time for that battery to whittle down, and that is just so great knowing that people can go out and go on long tours with this bike. And of course, if the standard battery isn't enough for you, you can easily double it by adding the second battery in the rear rack at checkout. Not only that, but it features one of my favorite bits of tech with the Enviolo drivetrain system. It's so intuitive, it's so fun, and it's just one of those things that feels luxurious on your bike. The comfort on this is almost second to none thanks to that 100mm air fork up front, and the versatile tires mean you can take this bike just about anywhere you want to go. Now, the only real gripe that I found with this bike is knowing that it could have been a Class 2, meaning it would have had a throttle. That is something you have to add at checkout, and I kind of just wish it came standard instead. But other than that though, I don't think this bike had any glaring flaws or anything to point to say, I think that needs to be improved. I think you're actually getting wonderful value for your dollar here. Now, if you found this review helpful, give this video a like. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the Electric Bike Report channel. And for any other things you don't feel we covered here in this review, we'll leave a link to our written description down below where we go into more detail there. Again, I'm Griffin Hales with Electric Bike Report. We'll see you in the next review.